Hey, how's everybody doing? Well, I guess if you're on this video here, it's because you've been struggling with your zoom lens. I take people out all the time and tell them to get their zoom lenses ready because we're getting ready for some big time wildlife. And a lot of times I'll hear them say, I got a really nice zoom lens, but it's not very good. The focus on it isn't very good. If you're having that problem, get that zoom lens back out because I think I can help you. That's a common problem that everybody has. And what happens is, most of the time when we're shooting, we got a wide angle lens on. You know, we're shooting a picture in the house of our kids, grandkids, our dog, or whatever. Very seldom do we put these lenses on right here. This lens goes from 200 millimeter to 500 millimeter. I can really reach out and bring something in. Okay? One of the first troubles that we have when we're using these zoom lenses and we're zoomed out, and this is the mentality that everybody gets into. We got 500 millimeters. I'm using all 500. Sometimes we get in that mindset like we're shooting for Britannica Encyclopedia or whatever, and we bring that moose or that whitetail or the dog or whatever in as close as we can get it, like we're going to put this picture for encyclopedia, you know, or in a dictionary for the definition or whatever. Actually, a lot of times, if we zoom out a little bit, we might capture that reflection in the water. You know, we might have a cool scene with a moose standing in a creek or whatever, you know. A lot of times people think, man, I wish I could get closer. Well, sometimes you'd be better off, you'd have a cooler photo if you'd zoom out. Use your composition, get that moose, that whitetail or whatever, zoom out a little bit, you tell more of a story, okay? Now, with that being said, let's jump back into what gives everybody the problem. Number one problem is, when I put this zoom lens on, the area that I'm looking at becomes condensed. So if that bird flies by here, when we don't use these lenses very often, it's like, I know it's out there. You know, and that's what happens. Now the eagle's gone, okay? And here's what I find. I'll have people, I do wildlife work up in Alaska, and I'll take people out there with me, and they've spent the money, they got the nice camera, and they got the nice lens. You know, they don't have that Facebook marketplace stuff like I do. They got really high-end stuff. So we're walking down the trail, and we got a lot of ravens up there. And that raven will fly by, man, and I take my camera and I shoot that. And I always look, nobody else will shoot a raven. They won't shoot a crow or a sparrow, you know, those things like that. They want that eagle. They want that hawk, you know. They want the osprey. You don't see those birds often enough, at least where I'm at. We don't see eagles around Denali very much. So if I just practice when I saw an eagle, I'm never going to get good at it. So anytime that crow comes out, I shoot that crow. I shoot that raven. I shoot that sparrow. If a squirrel lands out on the limb, I get my camera up there and I find that animal as fast as I can. Time on target means more shots, okay? If I'm sitting here like this while my dude next to me is firing off his shot, he's got a chance to get a lot more photos than me. I'm just wanting one good one, so I'm missing them, okay? And that bird, hell, it's already gone because I just haven't practiced. But you have got to shoot. When you shoot these lenses, you're putting it on because you're going to get a shot of a lifetime. You know, you're going to get to shoot that moose or whatever. Now, once we find that target, oh, there's that bird, and we shoot those photos, then we look, a lot of times our focus is a little soft. We may have a moose standing out there in a ditch. Well, here's the thing. When you zoom out to 500 millimeters or 600 millimeters, when you're pushing that button down, this camera shake right here becomes greatly magnified, okay? The more you zoom, the more it's magnified. How do we fight that? It's simple. I told you this is a 500 millimeter lens, so if I'm zoomed out to 500 millimeters, if I'm hand holding this shot, I can never let my shutter speed fall below 1/500th of a second. If I switch and I put a 600mm lens on, I can never let my shutter speed fall below 1/600th of a second. Okay? Now, 1/500th of a second will stop my handshake. It will take care of that moose that's standing in the ditch. It's not going to do anything for that hummingbird. It's not going to do anything for that duck. Okay? You need different shutter speeds for different animals, different things. You know, shooting a football game, you want a different shutter speed. Shooting birds, an eagle, roughly 1/1000th of a second. The duck, roughly 1/2500th of a second. Why do you shoot the duck faster? Because the duck's wings flap faster. Okay? The smaller the bird, the faster your shutter speed's got to be. And then all that too is relative to how close they are. You know, bird coming right in on you, you need to be a little faster than that too. So we need to practice this. Find it in target. We need to get our shutter speed where it needs to be. Okay, say we get out there early afternoon and we're shooting ducks flying by and they all look like they could go in Field and Stream magazine. All of a sudden, my ducks are blurry. What's happened is the sun has went down. Okay, so now it's taken longer to process to light that sensor and get your exposure dialed in directly. Okay, so we don't have to go home. We have to keep an eye on that. When you're looking and you're shooting these lenses, when you push your shutter button down halfway, there's going to be numbers in your viewfinder on the bottom. The bottom left number is your shutter speed. Get in the habit of knowing what that is, especially when you have this lens on or your zoom lenses. Okay, now if I'm shooting a 200mm lens or 500mm lens and I look through here, I've got 1/250th of a second. Okay, I'm shooting too slow. That animal's going to be blurry and everything else in the background is going to be blurry because of my handshake. Okay, now to correct that, all I have to do is raise my ISO. Raising my ISO will raise my shutter speed. Okay, so I want to get to 1/500th of a second. I can go from ISO 100 to ISO 200. I've doubled my ISO. That doubles my shutter speed. So I can sit there and I can shoot these ducks a little bit longer. But as the sun goes down, I'm going to have to raise my ISO again. Now, why don't I just raise it up real high to begin with and not have to worry about it? Because the higher I raise my ISO, the more grain I'm going to bring into the image. And now, a lot of times when I'm out with people that have spent time in a dark room and they shot film cameras, when I talk about raising ISOs, I mean their skin crawls and they're not going to have it. But here's the deal. If you don't raise your ISO up high enough to get your shutter speed where it needs to be, that photo goes in the recycle bin because it's blurry. Okay? And when you really get good at it, I don't worry about it. I hand hold all my wildlife shots. I'm not messing with no tripod. It's just I don't have time for that. I get too aggravated. It gets in the way. I just raise my ISOs, and sometimes when I'm in low light, early morning, late in the evening, I'll have some grainy images. But I use a plug-in that takes care of it. And there's things you can do, but don't worry about that. The only people that see grain is other photographers. If that picture is sharp, hang it on the wall and be proud. Don't worry about it. So we're going to recap real quick. This was really simple. Shutter speed does two things. Okay, shutter speed stops the handshake and it stops your motion blur. So zoom lenses, we got to fight the handshake. We need our shutter speed to at least match our focal length. Okay, sometimes I shoot a dock diving event over in Oklahoma City and I'm standing at the end of the pool shooting these dogs coming at me, and I do this about 1,000 times a day. And sometimes I'm standing here like this waiting for that dog to go, and this lens gets heavy and I start trembling and shaking. So maybe at the end of the day I'm going to double my focal length, my shutter speed. I'm going to shoot 1/1000th of a second because I know I'm shaking and I'm a little bit weak. If you're an older person, you know, sometimes our hands shake a little bit. Just raise your ISO a little bit. Don't think you got to quit this game. Stay home, sit in the recliner, get out there. Even if you don't capture it, you get to see it. So, I hope this helps you. Thanks for stopping here at Todd Wetstein Photography, and I hope you have a great day and good shooting.